around South Sudan and be part of the conversation that matters. Subscribe now and join us for the stories that connect us all. Together, let's explore the heart of South Sudan. Welcome to Around South Sudan, your go-to podcast for the stories that shape our nation. Each week, we explore the most impactful headlines that are shaping the narrative in South Sudan. We delve into issues related to national development, peace building, politics, culture and economics. To stay informed and engaged, tune into Around South Sudan and be part of the conversation that matters. Subscribe now and join us for the stories that connect us all. Together, let's explore the heart of South Sudan. Welcome to Around South Sudan, your go-to podcast for the stories that shape our nation. Each week, we explore the most impactful headlines that are shaping the narrative in South Sudan. We delve into issues related to national development, peace building, politics, culture and economics. To stay informed and engaged, tune into Around South Sudan and be part of the conversation that matters. Subscribe now and join us for the stories that connect us all. Together, let's explore the heart of South Sudan. Welcome to Around South Sudan, your go-to podcast for the stories that shape our nation. Each week, we explore the most impactful headlines that are shaping the narrative in South Sudan. We delve into issues related to national development, peace building, politics, culture and economics. To stay informed and engaged, tune into Around South Sudan and be part of the conversation that matters. Subscribe now and join us for the stories that connect us all. Together, let's explore the heart of South Sudan. Welcome to Around South Sudan, your go-to podcast for the stories that shape our nation. Each week, we explore the most impactful headlines that are shaping the narrative in South Sudan. We delve into issues related to national development, peace building, politics, culture and economics. To stay informed and engaged, tune into Around South Sudan and be part of the conversation that matters. Subscribe now and join us for the stories that connect us all. Together, let's explore the heart of South Sudan. Welcome to Around South Sudan, your go-to podcast for the stories that shape our nation. Each week, we explore the most impactful headlines that are shaping the narrative in South Sudan. We delve into issues related to national development, peace building, politics, culture and economics. To stay informed and engaged, tune into Around South Sudan and be part of the conversation that matters. Subscribe now and join us for the stories that connect us all. Together, let's explore the heart of South Sudan. Welcome to Around South Sudan, your go-to podcast for the stories that shape our nation. Each week, we explore the most impactful headlines that are shaping the narrative in South Sudan. We delve into issues related to national development.
Hello, welcome to this week's edition of Around South Sudan, where we dive into the most pressing issues shaping the nation today. I am your host, as usual, Lasuba Memo, and today's episode we have two crucial topics for discussion. First, we will be examining the status of the peace agreement in South Sudan in the wake of recent violence in Upper Nile. What does this escalating violence mean for the future of peace in the country? And what are the key challenges standing in the way of a lasting resolution? We will break down the latest updates and look at the way forward for peace in South Sudan. And next, we will turn our attention to a significant development in South Sudan's international relations, the proposed closure of the U.S. Embassy in Juba. How will this decision impact the country's diplomatic and security landscape? And what might it mean for South Sudan's foreign aid and international partnership? I am glad today to be joined by external guests. I say external guests because we have been having colleagues from within the station discussing matters that are concerning South Sudan. Today I'm privileged to be joined by Moga. He will tell us the other name. He is actually a consultant, and he is currently finalizing his studies in law. And my colleague also here, Juma Peter, from the Association of Media Development in South Sudan. It's my honor having you.
Thank you so much, Lasuba.
And Moga, yes, I ran away from the law class. You were my former OB, although I haven't completed, but it's my pleasure, today being with you on the same platform to discuss issues that are really concerning in this country. But the first thing in this discussion is looking at the current situation. As a concerned citizen, from your own perspective, how do you view the peace agreement that South Sudanese, particularly parties that were involved in conflict prior to the peace agreement, actually signed, and we are seeing a lot of problems. And the latest that is really very concerning is the violence in Upper Nile State, and a lot of questions whether the peace agreement is dead. What is your thought?
Thank you, Lasuba, and thank you to the management of iRadio for having me. My name's Moga Emmanuel, that is my full name. Looking at the current situation, first, I think it would not be proper to say now the agreement is dead. Maybe the right word to use is that there is stagnation, in my view, because still some pieces of it are breathing. Like we see the parties to the agreement, most of them are still in their position. The position according to the distribution of power in the peace agreement, they are still holding their position. Some bits of the mechanisms are still functioning, but it seems the speed at which we are moving cannot really very much be appreciated. Looking at the situation that has been happening in Upper Nile for almost now going to a month, I think is not a good situation for this country. Because when we follow the media stories, the casualties, the displacement, the tales of suffering, it is really very unfortunate. And the most complicated thing about the situation in Upper Nile, particularly to say Nasir, and now we are also hearing stories from Ulam, is that you don't know who exactly is the problem. Because we have the White Army, who have even put a very intensified campaign on media. You can see on YouTube, you can see on TikTok, you can see on Facebook. And also there is a side of the government. And like Makwe has said, if you want to confirm, you go to Nasir and confirm for yourself some of the things. But the reality is that the situation is not really very well. And when we analyze critically, the situation is not good. Looking at the level of the confrontations, the killings, the casualties, and the White Army are saying they are defending their community or the civil population, and the government is also saying they are going in to protect the civil population. But what is very much worrying for me is that, first, the White Army is a militia. The mandate to protect lies with the government. But now the White Army is saying the government is not protecting the civilians, it is targeting the civilians. But also the government has also gone in saying the White Army are not protecting the civilians, they are attacking the civilians. But what should be very much concerning to us is that for how long shall we continue to have arms in wrong hands? This should be the question that South Sudanese should be having sober mind to discuss. When we look at the video clips on social media, the level to which community groups are armed, I would even want to say some of them are more armed than some battalions or some divisions that belong to the regular forces. Now, this should be a worrisome situation, not even only that these people are able to confront themselves with the government. How about the neighboring communities that may not be having the capacity of the arms that their neighbors have? But also, the biggest question is that if these were rebels, at least there would be a basis of negotiations and things can be addressed. But these are just like the way they describe themselves. They are white army and they are community based. Now the greatest problem in this is that at the end, it is the women, the children, and the vulnerable who get to suffer. Because some of these people who fight, they are energetic. When they see that the situation is alarming, they run away.
Right. Let me turn to Juma, Peter. So what are your thoughts, your reflections, given we have a peace agreement at hand, but yet what is in the agreement seems not to be holding, because you've seen violations around violence. It's happening, taking place in parts of the country, and a very concerning one is actually what Moga has just mentioned in Nasir, which is actually spreading to other parts of the state.
Thank you so much, Lasova, and also iRadio for this beautiful opportunity to discuss about the current state of affairs in our country in relation to peace agreement, which is holding peace in this country. We see that the current crisis in parts of the country is actually emanated from the very many years of not paying attention to critical issues that are there in the revitalized peace agreement. I know when South Sudan gained independence in 2011, we're supposed to have a commission that handle issues to do with reconciliation and genuine peace building, to see that the violations that were committed in the past when we were still in the struggle, for instance, like the crisis of 1991 or something like that. So those issues are supposed to be addressed in 2012 and around that. But unfortunately, a year later, of course, we had a conflict of 2013 that didn't give enough time to the citizens to reconcile genuinely, to really have a serious reconciliation, so that we bury the past and we open a new page of our country. So because of these underlying issues, now we have recurrent of crisis in the country. The 2016 crisis that people, some of the analysts also say that it followed some sort of tribal line and so many other violations that happened in the past. So I think the crisis, the White Army, it existed even during the struggle, the liberation struggle. That entity existed. I could also remember it also helped the then armed guerrillas like SPLA to fight the Sudanese army. But what actually became an issue was they're supposed to be integrated into regular forces. So the integration is supposed to be so comprehensive. Of course, unfortunately, we wasted time during the regional government from 2005 to 2010 or 2011. So that was enough time for us supposed to look at how we can integrate some of these armed groups, so that when now we have a country of our own, at least there will be one army under one command. But we wasted a lot of time, and given the fact that there was enough money that were offered to us by our
But the 20
partners.
agreement is supposed to address these root causes,
And
those underlying issues.
yeah, definitely, it's supposed. But of course, now, because the issues are existed and they were not resolved, and so many armed groups in the country, just example like Congo. Congo have over 200 armed groups fighting the government, disagreeing against the government. It will become very difficult for a government to focus on resolving issues with this, maybe with one of the factions, when so many other factions are still fighting the government. And it became very, very difficult. And this can actually perpetuate the suffering of the people.
Why didn't the agreement work to address some of these issues?
I think the agreement was started from the left-hand side. From the left-hand side, why do I say that? Because from the immediate spot, the parties started not to agree. They only agree on matters of political interest, like distribution of position, appointment of members to these respective positions. And we have often seen the times when the parties to the agreement cooperate so much and you even see them laughing is when they are extending the agreement. But there have been no commitment to see that the key elements of the agreement are implemented, especially areas of confidence building. There have been no much investment to see that there is confidence building. You know, South Sudan is a post-conflict country, and one of the most difficult things in a post-conflict era is to build confidence and renew relationship among two enemies, two or more enemies. These are people, or these are groups, political parties, that have fought each other. They have fought each other in front lines,
and they have had
battles.
a strong influence
and now,
in their communities.
They are brought together to address the problem and say, we have let the past to go. That one is only possible when the parties accept each other and they forget the past. One of the biggest problems, I repeat, of post-conflict situation is for the parties involved to agree to each other and build relationship. Part of the issues, we say, for example, the issue of unification of forces. It delayed. And you find each and every party that has an arm wing is having a C&C. South Sudan, I think, is going to become a research center in future, where you have several commander-in-chiefs. It is not there in any other country, at least for as far as my knowledge is concerned. I stand to be corrected. And you see, this creates impossibilities. The main, like we see the president is a commander-in-chief of the South Sudan People's Defense Forces. We have another one for the IO. We have another one for Forces of Sawa. We have another one, and we have another one. Okay. The Supreme Commander or the President will give directives. Then the other C&C also will give directives. How will things work? It will be impossible. And also, like, we have seen something very, to me, in my opinion, that is a bad spirit. That you see parties to the agreement, they address themselves in the media when there are critical issues. Instead of sitting down and discuss one-on-one, face-to-face, you find the IO is issuing press release, SOA is issuing press release, the IT GONU is issuing press release.
When actually they have the mechanisms.
Yet they have the mechanisms and opportunities to sit together, face-to-face, and discuss. You know, when you address critical issues, always through press release, it gives even enemies of peace opportunity to pick and interpret in the way they want. It even gives your members or your followers, it casts doubt in their mind, and they begin to perceive the other side as an enemy. But we are saying this is time that the parties are in peace. If there are issues, even in our families, let me take the family as a unit. Like you, the wife and the husband, when there are issues, they are addressed inside. You don't come and address issues just in the compound, then you begin exchanging words, then your children will be seeing, even neighbors will listen. And neighbors will take advantage. Somebody will advise your wife, I even told you this husband of yours is not a serious guy. And this is what the situation that we are finding ourselves in. So in my view, there is still a lot that especially the leadership of the parties to the agreement need to do. Like even now what we are seeing, every party is issuing statement you find that the most funniest thing is that they issue statements of condemnation and see, then again say, we urge the parties to the agreement.
And their members.
So who are the parties that you are now urging? You are urging yourselves. So the best thing, as yourselves as a group, sit, discuss, and forge a
So
better
this
way.
boils down to distrust.
Yes.
That has grown over time, and he mentioned about previous conflict or past conflicts that involved these same leaders, and so over time of even petty things, I think, even escalate, and they go and speak to the media, as you say, rather than just thinking that this is a small thing that we can address by actually sitting down. So yes,
I think, Memo, it also even goes back to the point of political capital. Some of the politicians do not have enough political capital. So they want to ride on chaos. Some political parties or political arrangements, because some of them are not yet registered by the political
I love that, political capital.
They lack political capital. So they know that when they are put to the real political test, as individuals or as political organizations, they cannot survive. So the best thing is to survive on two options. Option A, extension. That is why when it is a conference of extension, whether in Ministry of Foreign Affairs or in the Cabinet Hall or where, you see everybody is there and they are even hugging. Others want to ride based on chaos.
If I may infer from what you're saying, it's like you're saying they're avoiding a democratic system.
That is the point.
Do you agree that's what is happening?
What I know, the issue is, of course, it is a unity government. Normally in a coalition government, the party is supposed to look at themselves as partners, partners to the agreement, partners to the government, so looking at themselves as government. But unfortunately, of course, due to trust issues that my colleague has mentioned, so they're still looking at themselves as foes. And normally, when a statement is delivered, supposed to be delivered by one government spokesperson that represents all of them. For instance, like the seat of Michael Makwe, supposed to be like the government spokesperson to all of them. But in most of the statement, you see that the government spokesperson giving his side of the report, and also somebody representing his party to the government, also giving, this confuse actually our political space.
So if you give a statement as the spokesperson of a unity government and it doesn't satisfy my needs or interest, I would basically think that you have neglected me.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Would this be one of the reasons maybe you find other parties feel they're actually being undermined?
Yeah, definitely, because issues are not addressed on transparent manner, through transparent manner. Issues are addressed through political things. That's why you find that messages are being used to favor a certain maybe party that is part of the government. That's why people are not satisfied by a statement issued by individuals who are part with the government. But if people are looking at it as like looking at the interest, like the public interest, then people can have one voice that is speak for all. The issue is because politics and people look at things from political point of view. That's why messages normally come in a parallel way that do not really reflect the truth that's supposed to be reflected on the media.
So we are stuck as a country. We're not moving forward in terms of realizing, absolute peace in the country. And would you say the peace agreement is in jeopardy? And if this conflict stays longer, if it escalates, as we are saying, there is no dialogue so far among the parties. And just you have said that they continue to issue statements. So what would be the fate of the agreement if there is failure from the leaders to come together and say, let's sit and address those?
You see, the peace agreement may not be moving, but there is also good news. The good part of it is that South Sudanese themselves are very tired. Even the parties to the agreement are very tired. You see, some of these politicians do not longer command enough respect the way they used to command before 2013. Even them, they want to gain a status that they would really be respected. And that process is only through democratic processes where citizens get to elect their leaders. And one of the good parts is that even in all this situation, when you see a press statement from the parties to the agreement, the last paragraph always talks about we remain committed in letter and spirit. Although that has been the language for long, but still it signifies that much as there is a situation that is facing the peace agreement, the parties to the peace agreement are still interested and are willing to see into it that the country moves forward.
But that moving forward has been an issue.
Yes. Now, what needs to happen is the question. In this situation, I would say, for example, now, we have the NPTC that is headed by Honorable General Kwal Manyangjuk. It is time for them to swing into action so that discussions can begin. Not only the parties to the agreement, it is also now time for other guarantors, for the guarantors to the peace agreement to wake up. You know, this is a critical time where now their support, their action is needed most. Not only even them, but now we know, especially during the time of the CPA or the 21 years conflict of the SPLA, the liberation struggle, that the church and the community traditional leaders, they played a very great role. I think it is now time for these institutions to put themselves together and try to see how they can approach this situation, to see into it that the peace agreement that at least have been holding this country since 2018 does not slip off our hands. Because I am sure we may be left alone this time, if in case we do not again work very hard to nurture this agreement to deliver us from the current situation.
There have been calls that South Sudanese do not need to go outside to look for peace, but to sit among themselves and look for where the problem is and address them. And here you're saying there is need for guarantors to really step up. We have seen guarantors coming in recently to intervene, and so far we have not seen any outcome of their coming. And so how can we move when even the parties don't seem to listen to these calls from the guarantors?
Okay. Not to also rule out that guarantors can have interest. And part of the interest may not align with the interest of this country or of the peace agreement. However, that does not mean they should be ruled out from the process of ensuring the peace agreement holds. What needs to really happen going forward is that even as South Sudanese, first, we need to be the custodians of this peace agreement. The political will, and when I say political will in my own opinion, I do not mean only the politicians. You know, these politicians do not just fall from the tree. They come from us, the civil population. And in this country, communities, tribes, regions, and ethnicities influence politics. It is communities, it is tribes that tell a leader that comes from their community what he or she should go and do when he gets into power. So this means even the problem that this country is facing, for me it is always not right to 100% blame it on the politicians who are holding positions. Even us at the grassroots, we even have problem because we are the people, once there is an appointment, we get our logara, we get our whatever traditional instrument, we go and dance there, then the elders remain behind to advise the politician. What advice are we giving? Others are not giving advice that can take this country forward. So the general problem is all of us South Sudanese. It's not only politicians. Because these politicians also come from us, and we are part of the people who corrupt their mind. We corrupt the mind of the politicians, and the politicians corrupt the minds of the citizens. And this
so
level of confusion need to be addressed. It is okay to say South Sudanese solutions for South Sudanese problem, but it must not also mean we close out the guarantors, or our neighbors, the region, or the international community.
what would be a repercussion of this country not having dialogue to resolve this? Because there have been worries that if it stays like this, as we have already seen, the tension keeps escalating and violence keeps growing.
Yeah, my fear is actually political isolation, because everyone will get tired, all the guarantors will get tired, and each neighbor will turn up like just to protect its own international borders, especially the borders with South Sudan, because they directly get affected whenever there is conflict in South Sudan. You see refugees flocking to neighboring countries, and among the refugees there are also criminals and all of that can also cause a national security harm to their countries. So they look at it as the interest that a neighbor has to be peaceful, so that it doesn't export, some sort of refugees and also other things. But since the way we see, like the parties are not interested in actually settling this long political standoff, so we see that the neighbors will get tired and they will definitely isolate South Sudan, like politically, and it will have negative repercussion on the country. Not only on that, but also on us, like we will start carrying the burden of our nationality. When you go to Uganda, people ask you, why are you fighting? Why are you burning your own house? What are you doing here? So those are some of the burdens.
For some neighbors, the fighting here may be good for them.
Yeah, though, of course, though economically it may be good, but also when we look at the current trend, like the current changes in the world politics, you find that most of the things are no longer gainable. For instance, like countries that host refugees, normally they get some support for the damages that the refugees pose on their country. So, but now if you look at the funding trends, it's now going lower, so that benefit is not going to be there, unless otherwise other lucrative benefits, maybe like other countries that are being accused of exploiting South Sudan's political and security challenges for their own gains. Of course, those can actually get direct gains. But otherwise, South Sudan is, the peace agreement in South Sudan is just like on top of the cliffs, on the edge of the cliffs, like it can collapse at any time. Should the key principle to this revitalized peace agreement keep on isolating themselves, not having direct discussion on what is really happening in this country. If you look at if you map up the political powers that we have in South Sudan, you look at the level of influence, not at the individual level. Look at, is that person so influential? What is the risk that if we isolate that person on the country? You find that if that person is so central, so you have to ensure that you dialogue with the person so that you find an amicable way of solving the issue. Because otherwise, normally, if you look at the conflict of ideologues, you find that it never ends, because each part will think that is right because he liberated the country, so that ABCD will be put in place. Another part will say also he's right because he liberated this country. In him, like the reason why he was fighting because of ABCD, want to see that happen. But normally in other successful countries, you find that liberators, after they gain independence, maybe when they bring the peace, they stand aside. They allow technocrats to take on the leadership of the country.
And then the government actually takes care of them.
Yes, definitely. There is DDR, whereby they will be demobilized. Of course, those who are still having energy to serve, they can serve in the police, they can serve here and there. But those who are already tired, they can be given something to keep them there. A country will not forget them. They will still be taken care of by the country.
Right.
That's supposed to be.
Moga Emmanuel, there have been calls from regional and international bodies for the release of SPLM-IO detainees. And this is actually linked to the call for dialogue, so that the peace parties could resolve their differences. And what needs to be done? Because already have the government on this side have clearly stated its position that these individuals were allegedly involved in some activities, and they are arrested for them, and they have to be investigated and taken to court. On the other hand, you have international community or regional leaders calling for their release, for for dialogue to take place. And is this why we are stuck today in moving forward?
I think on the issues of detention, or of some members of some political parties to the agreement being in detention, the government had said those people are suspects and there is an ongoing investigation. We have also had the calls from the international community, including, I think, the African panel of WISE, anyway, whom we have not seen their report up to now. But I think at the critical time now, the right thing to do is to do the right thing. If the detainees are suspects, I think, like the government had said, let the investigation be fast-tracked and let them appear in court. And if there are no sufficient evidence also, let them be set free. If there are sufficient evidence, let them be taken to court. And if there are no sufficient evidence, let them be set free. The right thing is to do the right thing now is to do the right thing, and the right thing is to be within the law. If indeed they are suspects and there are sufficient evidence, of course, it would also not be right to set them free. Because it is also time now to ensure that each and every one of us have to account for our actions. But also, if they are found not to have contributed to the circumstances for which they are being suspected, then they can be set free.
What do you have to say, Peter?
What I know, suspects are not criminals. They are suspects, and our laws are very clear. You know, the laws are like a suspect cannot be detained for a period of days, maybe for very many days, without being presented to the court for judgment. And of course, they have immunity. Some of them have immunity because they hold senior government positions in this country. And if you look at that, it can also have negative repercussion if they, the parties continue to detain them. Maybe people who are directly involved in detaining them, they will definitely reap the fruits of whatever is happening. But what I would advise, of course, is that people should look at the public interest, the interest of us all. The priority is to see that there is peace. What I know, some of the allegations against them, like if you look at some of this white army, they are non-state actors. So they are just armed groups, and normally you don't know who is influencing them. But of course, if there are evidence, clear evidence, then they have to be stated clearly so that justice has to be provided and human right has not to be violated. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm looking at. But them actually being kept there for very many days, and also it is stalled the peace agreement, the implementation. And also there is a mechanism in the revitalized peace agreement, the chapter 5, that talks about the transitional justice. It has all these things, tools to be used to see that those who committed violations are tried through in a competent court, like the hybrid court that can be formed. So why can they just implement the chapter 5 of the agreement and set up all these mechanisms so that people who are accused of involving in human rights violations are tried in a very, very competent court. That involves, of course, some judges from the regions that are well versed in handling.
Are you saying this decision
cases.
of arrest shouldn't have taken place, but to give chance to that mechanism that actually provides for establishment of hybrid court to try these cases?
Definitely.
Yeah, just sum up this discussion as we move to the next topic. What are the critical things that need to be addressed now for the country to calm?
Okay, the critical things is that to take place is that there should be this escalation. You see, when we look at the social media, there seem to be mobilization. You can see on social media. So for example, we could see some officials of the IO who are here in Juba talking from either cantonment sites or somewhere in one of their barracks. And we can also see in Juba, the movement, which sends fear to the civil population. Now, what needs to happen is that the parties to the agreement need to do us a favor as a country. It's actually not a favor, but now in this situation, we can describe it as so. To de-escalate and come on the table. During the 2016 up to 18 period, things looked very tense, as if it was impossible to sit and talk. But at least people sat, there was discussion, and the issues were at least put into the agreement. This time, at least we have an opportunity because we have not yet entered into a confrontational fight in front lines. To me, I see that it is easier. Except that now one of the challenges that we are beginning to see is also that, for example, among the parties, they are also beginning to look some advantage taking. And that one will also drag us along, you know. So I think it is now right time for parties to put personal interests aside, but to put the interests of the country ahead, de-escalate, and not mobilize. Also, to me, the most important thing is for us, as people of South Sudan, to refuse to be mobilized. Because for any conflict to succeed, it is us, the ordinary citizens, to guarantee that it can succeed. If we refuse to be mobilized into the conflict, these politicians will fail, and they will get frustrated in their interest to take this country back to conflict.
So they go to the boxing ring then?
Maybe, and then they finish in the ring, and we wait for the winner.
Right, dear viewer, let's now turn to the next item. As I alluded earlier, that we are now looking at the significant development in South Sudan's international relations. And you've recently probably come across this on the media, that the U.S. has proposed to close its embassy in South Sudan. And so the question is, how will this decision impact the country's diplomatic and security landscape, and what might it mean for South Sudan's foreign aid and international relationships?
Yeah, thank you so much. Of course, when we heard about this news, though it's yet to be confirmed officially by the government of the United States, it is a shock. It became a shock, especially to South Sudan. It caught us by surprise. Nobody prepared for that, because people still have believed that U.S. is a traditional supporter of the people of South Sudan, be it from the liberation struggle to until now we have a country. So people look from that aspect as like something that will never happen. But of course, with the current administration, it is administration that is result-oriented, Trump's administration. They want to see result of all the support that they have been supporting South Sudan for. I heard also that the U.S. government is also going to withdraw from supporting the Ukraine-Russia peace effort
Right.
because of results. Like they cannot keep on supporting something for 20 years and they are not seeing results. So the best thing for us as a country, we have to look at why can't we solve our issue so that we focus, we put this energy on nation building, on developing our country, rather than dwelling in a conflict that seems like eternal conflict that never cease. So U.S. withdrawing or maybe closing up its embassy, number one, humanitarianly is going to have a serious crisis because U.S. has been supporting us humanitarianly and also with governance. If you look at the governance whereby media components come to play and also other sectors that like the legal reforms and all of that. So all these supports are not going to be there, and definitely a country it will be a very big setback for the country.
What do you think prompted America to begin thinking of this move?
Like Juma has said, probably we have to still wait for the official notification, maybe from the embassy or from the U.S. government. But already the information is out there. What prompted, in my own opinion, is that I think the Trump administration came in with a different picture of things. I think we are all aware that as soon as Trump arrived, he issued series of executive orders that have not only affected South Sudan, but have affected several countries in the world, not only in Africa. Now, if South Sudan is going to be among the affected countries, I think 10 embassies plus some consulates. It may be because of the general reasons that the U.S. government is having, but there could also be some particular reasons as to why they want to pull out from South Sudan. Maybe they are seeing that the interest, because for a country to keep relationship with you is when the interest is sustained. Probably they are seeing that their interest is not being sustained or is not longer yielding. But also looking at the recent, I think 2 weeks, the story of the popular Kintu, who also has his other name, Nimeri. You know, these two things, this issue came immediately after that confusion of Nimeri Garang, Kintu, Mukula, something like that. And also the withdrawal of visas, or issuance of visa to South Sudanese. So, those could be some of the reasons, but I believe the South Sudan is just among the general the general restructuring that the Trump administration has come up with in their policy. Because since Trump came into power, there have been several issues, several orders that have not only affected South Sudan, but several countries. So this particular one of them signaling that they want to close their embassy or their presence in the country could be a general issue that South Sudan may have not even contributed to the decision.
Right. So let's look at what impact this would have. You said it, yes, it is yet to be confirmed. If it is, so what would be the impact on the political, diplomatic and security landscape of South Sudan?
Politically, of course, like what I said in the at my start of discussions, political isolation, because it is the way of isolating somebody. Like today, we had that Sweden also close its embassy, and now U.S. is going to close. Tomorrow another embassy will also take suit, will also close down. So they will run out from the country. Like a country will not live without the presence of friends to advise the government, to give some support to the government, even if not materially, but technical support, to see that the government also function like a conventional government, not like a South Sudan government whereby it has its own way of handling things. But people look at, because we're a member of United Nations, we're members of other instruments, other organizations, international organizations. We want to see that we remain as a group working together to see that we make the world a better place to live. But a situation that friends are now exiting your country or exiting your home, it sends a very bad image. It sends a very bad message to the people around the world. So we are going to see, like, it's going to be difficult even for South Sudan to negotiate on the sanctions and also the arms embargo that are already slapped on us. So it's going to be very hard, because now who is going to supervise the benchmark, the 5 benchmark that South Sudan has to fulfill for these punitive measures to be lifted? Who is going to look into that? Who is going to advise the government on how it can actually commit to its own commitment to see that these outstanding demands are fulfilled? It's really going to be so difficult. So those are the issues.
And you know, the U.S. speaks big at the United Nations General Assembly, and would that mean really U.S. would not be having a lot of say about South Sudan? South Sudan will just be, you know, disappearing in a thin smoke.
Okay, Memo, I want to start from what Juma has said, the impact or the effect of the U.S. pulling out. 2024, according to reports, the U.S. government contributed close to 44% of humanitarian and other related funding to this country. Also, as you see there, we are aware that the U.S. is the leading contributor to media development in this country in terms of funding, followed by other countries.
Yes.
Now, even before them closing, when the funding of USAID was withdrawn, in the media we were already feeling it. Personally, even me, I felt it. Because I also used to survive through consultancies that are funded by USAID. And not me as an individual only. The line will always go long. Now, with the current multiplicity of crises that South Sudan is in, climatic, pandemic, conflict, and so on, and you get a country that is contributing 44% in addressing this crisis is pulling out, I think we can already see the picture.
And also, don't you think this sends a negative image about South Sudan to U.S. allies? Because U.S. seems to be in the lead when it comes to that bloc. And do you see any dangers there?
Yeah, definitely. You know, even when Trump administration came, of course, as my colleague said, reviewing the U.S. policies, U.S. International politics and all of that. So some of the friends are also they also got affected, like especially in the Europe. And now they are looking at what can they do to see that they protect themselves. So supporting South Sudan becomes not a priority to most of the Europeans because of the Russia-Ukraine conflicts. So some of the money, some of the funding that they designated to South Sudan, they had to pull it back to now support themselves, because the U.S. has given them a condition that unless they raise their defense, otherwise they are not going to support. So for instance, like some of the countries, like Norwegians, they had to also like limit, like just to look at, okay, what can they do now that there is a conflict at the backyard? So what can they do to support themselves? You find that even the little fundings from the friends of U.S. are not going to be prioritized on South Sudan. They are going to withdraw that funding to see that they also defend themselves amidst the current arch enemy that they have in Europe. So meaning that the South Sudan crisis will not be a priority. Already we have 9 million people who are food insecure in the country. Out of the 9 million, we have 6 million children who really need support. They have already suffering from malnutrition and other diseases, children diseases, that need really this support to be maintained. Then who is going to support that? And now the country is broke, definitely completely broke. It has been depending on this humanitarian support, with goodwill support from these friends of U.S. and also U.S. So meaning that the crisis is going to reach to that level of 1990s, whereby there was a famine in Ethiopia, whereby people died in big numbers. In Sudan by then also there was a similar thing in 1986 or 89, around that. There was also a similar situation in Sudan. So the same things that happened in the past is going to happen unless we really end this madness that we are in, conflict, internal conflict. We end this madness, we reach a peace agreement, we implement the peace agreement, then we look at the resources that we have. How can we use the resources now to power education, to power health, to see that the infrastructures are maintained, and the livelihood is enhanced, inflation is reduced, to see that everyone has something, food at home, so that it can eat and you can dress well. Unless we end that madness we are in, we are destined to doom.
In short, would you say if the U.S. government closes its embassy, it already started with closing USAID, the agency, and closing that would mean total cut of any funding to South Sudan, because you don't have an embassy here. Because they wanted closing of the agency was actually to give now that responsibility to the embassies to be the one to be delivering this U.S. extended hand. But this is not going to be there if that is going to be the case.
The effects or the impact is really going to be far-reaching than us seeing the door being shut.
I like that.
One is that the people who are working there are going to come home, and that impacts on the economy of this country. It is going to add on the unemployment rate that is already in town. It is also going to impact in such a way that the economy, like now, this embassy is here, and they are going to the market. They are purchasing goods in good quantity. We know the power of the U.S., what they can do. Them closing will mean it will impact on the economy. It will also impact on the political situation, because some of the programs that were supported would mean there would be no support. Part of the watching eye will be missing. And this can give opportunity for those who thrive in conflict to take action. But also, it will also rob the country of its social capital. The network of friends, if they see, like the way it looks when we see the Troika does their things together, and now we are going to have a member intending to pull out of this country. Who knows? Others may also be influenced by that decision and say, probably these people have more reasons as to why they are moving out. I think it is also not good for us to continue here.
Right. So, is there any way the government can convince U.S. We say, don't abandon us. You were there when we started our struggle back then, and we gain our independence. Is there any way to convince?
I think, looking critically, I think the government has already started taking away. When we saw recently the new Minister of Foreign Affairs, who was just sworn in the other day, Honorable Ambassador Simaya Mande, he already met the U.S. ambassador immediately, even on a weekend, few days after being sworn into office. So probably it is a way to begin to discuss. But also yesterday, looking at the UN Security Council, the South Sudan representative, Cecilia Adey, she spoke. And when you look at that statement, you know that the country knows or foresees that the regional institutions or the regional bodies in the international community has some concerns about the way we are. So when you look at the statement that she gave, part of it is addressing and committing that the leadership of this country will do all it can to see that the worries or the concerns that the regional institution, the international community, including, of course, the US, is having about this country, who will fix them. And indeed, if the government will live to that statement, I think some of this will change.
In 1 minute, we almost past time.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, just to answer your question, the government has a window. It has a leverage of convincing the US government not to shut this embassy. I know the government has a bargain. The government has some cards to play. Unless it play that cards very well, then the US will not continue to be here. We know that if US withdraw, the rest of the countries are also going to withdraw, just like what my colleague said, because they will follow suit. Because it is like investing in something that you are not seeing the future of that investment. But again, if you look at South Sudan, it is actually definitely the creation of the United States government since during the liberations and all of that. It was them who conceived the idea of saying perhaps it can be a solution to Sudan's crisis. Because now the conflict was taken on religious line, Islamization of the Southerners, then perhaps if the people of South Sudan become independent, it will serve a solution as a sustainable solution to Sudan crisis. But now we got independence in 2011, now we descended to our own crisis, and what can we do now? So the government has some few cards that it can still play to see that the US remain in South Sudan, to see that like the health system continue to help people, and also education continue to function and all of that.
In another 1 minute, what is your message to the viewer?
My message to the viewer is definitely let us contribute to peacemaking in this country. We know that all of us have our role to play at the family level. There was another country that when the politicians decide not to become serious about the public interest, the public issues, women decided to say, okay, we are not going to give sex to our men. So perhaps it is time for our women, or the women of the Republic of South Sudan, to make their mind to see that if men are not able to now solve this issue, and they are going to continue suffering in terms of there is no maternal care, there is no good health services, there are ABC. They can also say, okay, for our men, we are not going to cook for them, we are not going to clean their houses, we are not going to give them sex, we are not going to do them ABCD and that. Perhaps
that makes
the politician will say now, let us find a way.
This guy is laughing. Maybe he has reservation. So what would you say?
Okay, what I would say is that I think we still have a window to renew our relationship and to also commit to continuing and building stronger relationship, not only with the US, but also with other regional governments, international government, I mean other countries and so on. In my message to the viewers, I would zero it to peace. That the situation is very critical, but we have a window of opportunity, and to me it is us as people of this country to stabilize this country. And the first step is to refuse to be mobilized into conflict. And I repeat, like I said before, as people, if we refuse to be convinced by the politicians to go into conflict, they will not succeed.
Moga, Emmanuel, thank you so much. And also, always almost have your names hanging, Joma Peter, but I'm really honored to have this insight from both of you, and we look forward to have you next time for similar discussion or topical issues in the country. And you, dear viewer, it's been my honor also having you glued to
our live streaming, and let's always have this conversation. You've gotten strong messages from our guests today, external guests, and this has been very interesting on my side, and I just hope we will see this feedback on the platform that is Facebook. So let's have this conversation next week again when we'll host experts to talk about challenges that the country is going through, and also what ways, what are some of the ways we need to take in order to address them. So let's have a great weekend. Enjoy your Easter, and let me also not forget my colleague there who is streaming live. That is Moses Awan, and the best of the day. Peace building, politics. To stay informed and engaged, tune into Around South Sudan and be part of the conversation that matters. Subscribe now and join us for the stories that connect us all. Together, let's explore the heart of South Sudan. Welcome to Around South Sudan. You go to